All right, everybody, I do believe we are live. Welcome to another episode of the Break the Rules live stream. I am your host, Lev Polyakov. We've got the cheerful as a child, Ben Avery, with us to talk about Elon Musk, whether Elon Musk is the Antichrist, whether he's creating the beast system with X that we're all going to be living under from now on. And of course, for this conversation, we've got two powerful boys who have been here before talking about the same thing, more or less, but today we're going to go even deeper into it. We got Drutang, the information trafficker himself, all the way live. And we also have the great and powerful Gnostic Informant who knows everything about religion, ancient philosophy, you name it. This guy is brilliant. Now we've got these beautiful shorts that Ben is wearing. Ben has graced us with such beautiful shorts and such a beautiful dog over there.
Thank you.
So I like the mic too.
Yeah, beautiful mic. So let us start out, Drew, just with giving us a brief synopsis on what exactly is going on here with X, with the new X system that Elon Musk is developing, and just a bit again about how you think that Elon Musk is playing this very particular role of this Antichrist, Moonchild, Aleister Crowley figure. And once again, for all the newcomers, be sure to smash that like button, smash the subscribe button, yada, yada, yada. Anyway, Drew, go for it.
So, great intro there. So as you know, Elon completed the transformation of Twitter from Twitter to X recently. And when you look into, Elon's history with the letter X, his it wasn't his first company, but I believe it was his second was X.com. His first one was like some type of encryption, like zip something. I forget what the company was called, but he started X.com. The idea was to digitize, bring finance into the digital world. And eventually, I forget exactly how it went down, but, at one point it merges with PayPal or he sells it, and eventually the project gets rolled into PayPal. So that was one of his first major products that kind of changed how finances work online. I don't know if you guys, I'm sure you guys do remember what it was like when, I remember as a kid realizing that, PayPal, you can now actually pay people online and stuff like that. It was a big, shift. And it enabled the internet economy. You could make money, selling stuff on eBay and stuff like that. So it was one of his first major cultural impacts. Again, he wasn't 100% responsible for PayPal, but he definitely played a part. And then, obviously going on SpaceX, and now his newest XAI. And yeah, basically the X symbol, obviously it's extremely prevalent, and extremely. The core of the symbolism here that I think is important for a lot of reasons is the fact that X was the symbol X was the last letter of the Paleo-Hebrew, aka Phoenician alphabet. So the earliest Christians actually used it, X, instead of a traditional T cross to represent Christ. So that, saying that outright, saying that, Musk was using it to, make himself into a Christ-like figure seems ridiculous, but there's a lot more, stuff behind that, which obviously I'm sure we're going to get into here. Another thing I think is important, and that kind of illustrates that point, that's a little more relevant and easily explainable, is Musk loves to post Deus Ex, which is in reference to the phrase Deus Ex Machina, which is the bunch of translations, either ghost in the machine or God in the machine. And basically that phrase refers to a idea in Greek theater, a plot device in which there's a what seems to be a hopeless situation, and then at the last moment, in Greek theater, they would literally drop in a god character on wires to save the day and basically resolve the plot. It was
And
an
the wires,
unexpected savior.
that was the machine for them. That was literally God out of the machine, God out of this wiry contraption that would lower them down onto the stage. That's what the machine was there. But before we go any further, I know Gnostic, and again, I think it's very fascinating. A lot of things that you're talking about, both for myself and Neil, and I'm sure as it's going to be for Ben. But I was talking to Neil before about that particular thing having to do with the letter, the Phoenician letter, and we are going to get into it because, again, I want to make sure that all these things that we're talking about, that we apply out of love the right kind of criticism and the right kind of adjustment to make sure that everything that we're talking about is going to be based in as much truth as possible. So, it's not like those skeptic people will say, well, actually, yada, 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 yada.
Yeah, I'm not trying to be that guy.
Yeah, he's not trying to be that guy.
I think that's fucking fascinating. And I think it's on point from, like, I'm not the bona fide expert that's here to, like, correct anything, but, like, the Greek shit with the Deus Ex Machina, that's all fucking sounds like.
Oh, wait, but before Neil, before you go, I want to make sure I get Ben's opinion on this. Okay. Just the idea that we have this technocratic person like Elon Musk, and he seems to be kind of a good guy in terms of the culture war for a lot of people. They see him as having taken over Twitter, being like this rebellious dude who's going to be against the system, who's afraid of having artificial intelligence subsume us, but at the same time is kind of using AI in order for us to fight against AI. So I don't know, Ben, just like looking from the side at Elon Musk and what he's been doing, what are your gut reactions so far?
Well, I know a lot of those guys, everything is like high school. Like you think you're going to get out of high school and you keep graduating into different high schools the rest of your life. It's all the same, And I think it's the same with billionaires. They're in a billionaire high school and they're constantly competing to be the most popular billionaire. So they always have these space races and stuff. And Elon is basically like, Mark Zuckerberg as Meta, and a lot of companies do these rebrandings. But then now Elon goes, well, I'm going to buy Twitter, and then I'm going to rebrand mine too. And I know he tried to rebrand it with X as well. But what's funny about you bringing up Deus Ex Machina is that's kind of what they're doing. It's these shitty devices in storytelling where no one liked Facebook anymore and it was syncing, and then all of a sudden this thing just comes out and now it's meta. It's completely new. It's nothing. It's not actual good like storytelling. It became such a trope back then that they came up with that term because someone would just write all of this bullshit. There'd be all of these yarns that couldn't ever come back together the way like Larry David could write a story or someone like that. And then it would I think they would come up from the ground too, wouldn't they? In the stage? Like
they had all types of entrapments and shit. Yeah,
they had crazy. So that's kind of what they're doing, where it's like this hopeless situation, and then this god, someone see, and like as people see Elon himself as it's this hopeless situation. We need a god figure to step down. It's a boring story. It's
he's the ultimate figure, by the way, for the soy face. If there was ever a figure for which your soy face would be appropriate, that's why I have two Bens. There needs to be more than one Ben for the soy face to work for him.
You can still see where the theaters were. They're all obviously like ruins now. Mm-hmm. If you go to Athens or Delphi, you can see how the theater was, where it was laid out. And it's usually right on a mountaintop, right in front of like the open sea. So like you're looking at this like god coming up and the skies behind him. So it's like he's flying. Like they were fucking geniuses with like this was the ancient Hollywood basically. Like this was the same shit. Like, and like that, the same way people talk about Hollywood, like it's all wicked and evil. That's how a lot of these other places looked at the Greeks. A bunch of fucking orgy loving, wine drinking, that's what
And they were basically doing their version of bad superhero movies.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jupiter. Yeah. Like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Same
Yeah.
Zeus.
Well,
happened in
well,
Greek.
that was we're gonna get into that because that's Drew's whole idea here when it comes to Iron Man and how Elon Musk is portraying Iron Man. But before we get into that one, I do want to go back to the idea of this letter T, this X. So Neil,
I just want to
you
clarify.
yes,
I'm not here to like.
yes.
I'm not here to like correct any. Well, so when you said the earliest Christians use it to represent Christ, what is that? What do you? What exactly? What does that mean?
So there's a History Channel episode in particular that shows this. They're basically exploring ruins of houses of early Christians. We're talking right at 0
Catacombs
AD
and
or
stuff?
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they show how they use like above their little altar they have an X symbol,
Cairo.
and then and
That's
then
well, so that's the thing. The reason why I was wondering because that's Greek. That wouldn't be Hebrew. Now-
so it's the
It looks like
in
the
the alphabet.
the Greek Chi looks like an X, and then
Okay.
the ancient Paleo Hebrew. You're right. Tau also looks the same. It looks like an X.
Mhm.
So that particular Christian logo would be Greek. So I don't know. I guess I was just trying to clarify. That's all.
Mm-hmm.
No, but I want to make sure that when we're talking about, for example, the Alpha and the Omega was supposed to represent.
Those are both. Yeah, that's all Greek. The word Omega is a Greek letter.
Yeah.
Alpha is a Greek letter. And in Hebrew, it's Aleph, but there is no Omega. It's the Ayin. And it looks it's the letter Ayin. So it would be we're talking Greek here, but if you're saying like, oh, it appears to be that way, then yeah, it fits the mold. Then I'm no problems with it.
Yeah, it's the last letter of the alphabet. That's how they explained it in this particular History Channel episode. But it's definitely not a core of my argument, but it is. And I mean, I'll send you the link, and you can see if you think that it's being bullshit or not. But
the steel man for you to throw you a layup in Ezekiel. There's a passage about them putting the Tau mark on their foreheads so that they would be to show that they were. I forgot what it was for. It was like it was sort of like to show like I'm repented. I'm showing my repentance. And the ones who showed the mark were like saved. The ones who didn't weren't. So in that case, yeah, they were putting a cross on their forehead. So a lot of Christians later on, when they're looking back at the Old Testament, they're saying, "Oh, look, they're putting crosses on their foreheads. This is a prophecy for Christ." So you could say the same thing's happening with the Cairo in Greek. Even though they're writing Greek letters, it still can be connected to the logogram of the Tau in Hebrew. So yeah, okay, we're good there.
So I think I understand. So what you're saying is that the letter Tau, that is a Hebrew, or is that a Greek letter? The letter Tau.
Letter Tau is Hebrew. But here's another thing I was going to say. But this is going to be now. I'm getting like really like in the weeds. If we got the earliest Christians writings wise, we're using Greek. Paul wrote in Greek. The Gospels are all Greek. There is basically no Hebrew Christian text. But if we were to get technical and like, if we were to like put together through like using just logic or like basic data, what the data suggests, Jesus as a historical figure probably would have been speaking Aramaic, and to be exact, Syriac Aramaic, which was the language of the northern Galilee and also in Syria. So those Christians would have spoke Syriac. It's basically it comes from the same Hebrew family, but it has a different alphabet. The Tau in that language looks a little bit different. It looks like an H. But that's me getting way too picky here. It's just like whatever. Who cares? That's why I didn't say it.
Yeah, I wanted Neil to nerd out a little bit when it comes
I'm just
to
nerding out. That's all.
Yeah,
that's
exactly. All. But the more important thing is not so much the language origin of a lot of things, like, for example, the cross, the T, Tau, but more of whether we are playing these characters in this giant movie, which Ben is not a really big fan of. I don't know, Ben, if you would have been a fan of like you were talking about the ancient Greek plays, for example. You would have the Iliad and the Odyssey and all of that. would you say, Ben, that you are not that big of a fan of any of those things either?
Pretty boring. Yeah, pretty boring.
Pretty boring. Okay, so
Pretty damn boring. I know I'm supposed to like have
no,
respect
it's
for the.
fine.
I know
Look, just because something's old doesn't mean you should respect it.
I mean, people are like, oh, like yeah, I don't care about Shakespeare. I don't care about any of that stuff. I try to read it. I know it's the wrong opinion to have, but I haven't got into it. I'm sorry.
I mean, look, I had Jason Jason Reeser-Johnny on the show multiple times. One of the things that he talks about, I think he actually talked about on the show with you, Neil, where all of that ancient Greek quote-unquote poetry, the Homeric epics, it was all kind of like an internet and also kind of like rap music. And it was something that was used as an indoctrination device for these younger Greeks to get them to, to get them to respect like this very abusive God and to, excuse all the rapes and all that stuff.
Homer being the internet, if you read Homer's Iliad, he gives you a geography lessons. He's telling you where cities are. He's telling you about ancient sources, ancient king. Like he goes through and gives you a rundown of everything. So like that would have been your source for knowledge of anything. Just reading Homer. How do I know where the fucking city of Delphi is? Oh, Homer says it's over here. So yeah, in a way, Homer was like the internet. And then as far as them being like rappers, they wrote in prose. And these like Pindar was this ancient Athenian playwright and poet who was like, when they talk about him, they say like he always had girls around him. He was famous as hell. He had a mansion. He was always like showing off, he was like living that lifestyle. And not only that, you even have beefs back then. Callimachus and Apollonius of Rhodes. Callimachus is living in Egypt. Apollonius of Rhodes is in Rhodes, obviously. And they have texts that talk shit about each other. There's like ancient Tupac and Biggie shit going on. Like it's pretty wild. Like
they even had a dreads.
Humans are humans no matter where you go.
Yeah. They
Seriously,
even had dreads, if I'm not mistaken, right? Like the Greeks, they had dreads going on.
Romans did that, yeah.
Oh, Romans? I thought it was Greek.
It might have been Greeks too, but Romans definitely did that, yeah.
But anyway, the whole point of all of this that we're talking about with this controlling technology of the ancient Homeric plays, I think it does come down to this question of how in charge are we of the stories that we tell ourselves. And Drew, I think your whole thing here has to do with how a lot of these stories have been prearranged to act in a certain way towards our subconscious and get us to accept certain things, while in reality, would you say like there could have been a different way? Like this is what I'm very confused about here. Are we talking about how we are all victims of fate that we have no control over? We're going into the Age of Aquarius. We're going to have this Antichrist figure. It's all going to work out like that. Or is there like leeway here? Is there something that we can do to go against that? Like how set are things? So let me know.
Great. Yeah, great question. So I think at the core of that question, and it's something obviously that's really at the core of all these type of conspiracy theories is, how much is chaos and how much is order. And I think we got into this the last time we chatted. And that's the idea behind. So the idea that you write a story and that it affects the mass subconscious of the, you make something into the pop culture. You basically program the population's minds with these different archetypes. So it teaches them what a hero looks like, what's justified, what's a moral code, do the end justify the means, what, what's a super cool superhero that, is going to save the whole world at the end. He might, maybe act like Elon Musk or have, he doesn't get his superpowers from any divine, source or mutation. It's simply his wealth and intelligence and technology. But the people who talk about it, specifically a student of Crowley, Alan Moore, fantastic comic book writer. His stuff is absolute genius, I think, in a realm of its own. But he says, it's they describe it as chaos magic because they're not, it's not like they're planning out and telling all these people to do a certain thing, but by just moving the mass subconscious in a certain direction. Just by the nature of the universe, when you get into quantum physics, are you guys familiar with the two slit experiment?
Yeah.
The idea that basically, if you don't watch where the photons go, they'll act as a wave. But then if you do put something behind the two slits, it forces the waveform to collapse into a single point. In that type of way, if you affect I guess that's the concept, is that by influencing it with a strong cultural message, and you have that idea in a bunch of people's minds, and you can affect certain outcomes. And then on a very basic level, that's the whole idea behind predictive programming, is if you want to program people to act predictably in a certain situation, then you would present them that situation as fiction over and over again. So, for instance, when the CDC consulted Hollywood and spent millions of dollars on an office to consult Hollywood to produce the movie Contagion in 2011.
We are on YouTube, by the way. Just careful how you speak. You got to use Creole or something like that. Unfortunately,
yeah.
I even hate fucking saying that. It's ridiculous. But anyway.
Yeah, I think YouTube's had to, fall back on a lot of that censorship now, luckily. But in the movie, they show conspiracy theorists that talk about lab leak theories of this pandemic in the movie Contagion, and how they're ridiculous and totally wrong, and it's not a bioweapon. It's just, they show a guy in China, a chef, chopping up a pig and a bat, and then I accidentally shook hands with somebody before washing my hands.
So Ben, bless you. What do you think about this so far? Where are you on this?
Well, I first of all, I would like to correct something I said. I do like the Greek tragedies, and I'm aware of things like that, and I'm aware of I like the stories. I often don't like how they're written. Does that make sense? Like, I don't want to read this.
Why? I'll tell you why. Because the translations suck.
I'm sure we needed
context. I'm learning Greek now, learning Attic Greek in particular, and I'm now being able to go back to these texts and see what they're really saying. It makes way more sense. You're like, oh shit, because when you translate a text and from a different language, the context is lost, and it comes out all stale and weird and like doesn't like it's like choppy. The words don't make. So yeah, I don't blame you.
We needed Young to translate all these things.
Yeah,
we should have had Carl Jung. But like, okay, for instance, right here, this is Murakami's book Kafka on the Shore. That's a great book, but it's just the story of Oedipus. That's all it is. Yeah, it's a guy wants to kill his father and have sex with his mother. That's the whole. So like understanding all those things and how they work in our unconscious mind and how they come out, those things are important. Oh, you like? I haven't read that by Murakami.
Yeah, it's good. I got a bunch of Murakamis over there in the back. Represent. Nice.
I love him.
I'll just I just got a quick fun fact that applies here, is that that Oedipus complex, it's very Freudian. Sigmund Freud, obviously, a huge influence in psychology. It was his great nephew Edward Bernays who actually really popularized and wrote the solid rules for what we call public relations, what he called propaganda when he wrote his book in 1928. Which obviously was used by the Nazi Party to form the cult of personality and radicalize the whole country of Germany. But he also, obviously worked for U.S. corporations. He helped the CIA in multiple coups by programming the public with propaganda. He got women to smoke, Edward Bernays. And then his great nephew is the co-founder of Netflix and its first CEO. I believe his name is Mark Randolph. But that just kind of shows how important that Oedipus complex and the Freudian psychology is literally at the core of all propaganda, and now Netflix to some degree.
Keeping it all in the family, I see. Nice. So when it comes to the Sigmund Freuds of the world and all of these world controllers, would you say that you would lean on there being an individual will where they make the choice of doing it, or do you also see all of these various figures as mere puppets that are being dangled around by the strings of higher powers, fate, whatever you want to say. Because Ben, when we were talking about speaking of Carl Jung, his whole thing was that we go through all these various epochs. We were in Aries, and back then things were very strong and manly and all of that, like the ram. And then when we were in the Pisces age, there were still attributes of Aries there. In fact, I'm going to have meme analysis on again in a couple of weeks, and that's what he talked about. Like when I asked him, well, wait a minute, Christianity, even though it's supposed to be like all, peace and love and all of that, there was still a lot of violence that went on during the Christian epoch, especially like in the Middle Ages, all these competing religions murdering each other. So his answer to that was that quality of the ram is still present, like it doesn't go away. So all of that, at least to me, sounds like it doesn't really matter what we do, we're going to be under these particular epochs. So the people who you, Drew, were talking about programming people to act a certain way, are they themselves not programmed to be the programmers, so to speak?
So how do you know that quote from, I think it's the quote from All the Pretty Horses about the puppets?
I do not know that quote. No.
I'll read it directly right here. I got it. I got another monitor.
Excellent. And Sneed those
Not
super
to brag
chats.
or anything, but I have another monitor.
I have a monitor right here, right below here. This is my drawing monitor. This is why I'm so shiny right now. By the way, everybody, sneed those super chats. If you have any questions for Ben, Drew, Gnostic Informant about any of this stuff, sneed the super chats, and we will address the super chats. Anyway, Ben.
So
yes.
Here's a quote from All the Pretty Horses by Cormac McCarthy, which is one of his great books. My fifth favorite, though, but it's amazing. For me, the world has always... shit. It wants me to sign up for Goodreads. I'm not signing up.
Okay.
I hate that.
Everybody, subscribe, click the bell in order to get Ben out of this hellscape of having to click through all of these different links, which is a stupid millennial idea of like getting people annoyed.
Yeah.
And that's what Curtis Yarvin always talks about, how he likes Substack, but he absolutely hates the fact that on every Substack, they always show that screen where you have to, click no, and all of that. He interprets that as millennials being the annoying shitbags that they are, just wanting to have like this theater kid energy of like occupying your time with all of these pop-ups.
Like funny. How Curtis is great.
Yeah, he's a lot of fun. Yeah, I should get you guys on together one day. That would be interesting.
Okay, here's the quote.
Yeah.
For me, the world has always been more of a puppet show, but when one looks behind the curtain and traces the strings upward, he finds they terminate in the hands of yet other puppets, themselves with their own strings which trace upward and turn, and so on. In my own life, I saw these strings whose origins were endless enact the deaths of great men in violence and madness, enact the ruin of a nation.
Drew, would you say you're in agreement with this?
Could I get the live reading one more time?
Sure. Ben, there we go.
I could do it one more time.
Strap in, Ben. All right.
For me, the world has always been more of a puppet show, but when one looks behind the curtain and traces the strings upward, he finds they terminate in the hands of yet other puppets, themselves with their own strings which trace upward and turn, and so on. In my own life, I saw these strings whose origins were endless enact the deaths of great men in violence and madness, enact the ruin of a nation. Cormac McCarthy, All the Pretty Horses. Thank you very much.
Very Gnostic, if you think about it.
Bravo.
All of his work is Gnostic, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to know why I think it's Gnostic? Well, go ahead, Drew. You first.
So yeah, 100% I agree. And that's actually another quote by Alan Moore is that he even says it. He says he's like, yeah, the idea that everything is planned. Mind you, like two of his works, specifically Watchmen and V for Vendetta, I think are two of the biggest examples of predictive programming and some of the most like scarily accurate, especially given that he talks about his work being magic. But he says he's like, yeah, it's a comforting idea that there's people controlling everything and it's conspiracy, but it's all chaos that results in these things. It's not really anything, but yeah, there to some degree, and I think this gets to the overall answer of how much order and how much chaos is. Yeah, there is to some degree there is some puppeteering going on. Like for instance, Werner von Braun writes the Mars Project in 1948, the same year that Elon Musk's mom is born. And he says that the human Mars colony will be led by a person given the title Elon in this fictional story. And it will be he describes it as being basically a Martian technocracy. Now, Elon Musk's grandfather was arrested in Canada for running the Technocracy Party in 1940, just 8 years previous. And the Technocracy Party was global, and they had some fanfare in Germany itself. And so it's, I don't know for sure if Werner von Braun was familiar with Elon Musk's grandfather, but, it's not like it was a pretty small world back then. So it's possible, certainly.
Now,
But
if that was true, it would explain why Elon Musk doesn't give a F about nothing and just has like no fear, just like can change Coca-Cola like level logos to X and be like, hey, fuck it, I'm doing it. Like like the most like known symbol, Twitter, the tweet logo. It's like, you're gonna change that? Like, you have $1 billion logo. Anyways, I'm just saying to say, if you were right, like, let's say you're right, just like for the sake of argument, that would explain a lot of shit.
Yeah, it's almost, I mean, at this point, I think it's a compelling case, obviously. But just to finish my thought, what's really interesting and what I learned, I went on this road trip to check out a couple places around the country, and esoteric spots. I saw the Georgia Guidestones, 3 months and 3 days before they blew up, and we actually like prayed for justice at their at the Guidestones right before. But right before we went to the Georgia Guidestones, we went to Jekyll Island, which of course is the infamous birthplace of the Federal Reserve. But while we were there, we learned a little bit about the history of the natives, in which they were very tall, and their culture included child sacrifice. And what's really interesting, the god that they were sacrificing to was this giant owl effigy, and it was a chaos god. Their religion basically revolved around the idea that they would discern meaning from random events. And what's really interesting is that, this was Jekyll Island was this huge, technocrat billionaire hangout, JP Morgan, the Rockefellers, obviously, Ford, and others would obviously go there. And it was kind of, I don't want to say it was kind of like the Epstein's Island of back then, but it kind of was.
Well, no, it's more like the one in the West Coast, in California. That's
the Bohemian Grove. Now that's where I'm going. And so the thing is, with the Bohemian Grove, everyone always talks about, famously, Alex Jones broke in and got video footage of them doing their little mock ritual to this owl god.
The
and they're Republicans. They're Republicans too. It's the weirdest shit ever, isn't it?
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
You're thinking be Democrats doing that shit. It's fucking Republicans.
Yeah, well, Nixon has a great of the Watergate tapes that were released. He's got a great little quote on that. I highly recommend everybody look up. I don't know if I'm allowed to quote him on YouTube, but
only if you're gay. So,
but yeah, exactly. It's my word. I can say it. But anyways, people talk about the effigy god, the owl god that they're sacrificing to. People call it Moloch. They call it Baal, but that's actually not accurate. I think it's much more likely that it's this same owl god of chaos that they were previously worshiping on the other side of the country. And I think ultimately that's what people are missing, is that it's not so much that the controllers of the world are, really focused on Satanism or, particularly Baal or Moloch. I think it's much more likely that they're relying on this chaos god to give them power, and they're basically taking their orders from it.
Now, before we go any further, though, Neil, you've studied extensively all these different mystery schools, all these religions. Where exactly would this particular owl deity line up in the history?
Well, you got Minerva and Athena, who are.
We also visited the Pantheon in Nashville, where they have the gigantic Athena with the owl inside.
Yeah, that's kind of like the extent of owls as gods. Like Moloch is never in the ancient, as far as ancient texts go, is not depicted as an owl. At least I've never seen it. So that's kind of that kind of like takes on its own thing later on. Like, I don't know when that started, 18th, 19th century, who knows? But yeah, that's sort of a modern depiction of Moloch, where in the ancient world, Moloch is usually, well, Moloch's more like a title for Baal. Baal and Moloch are kind of the same thing. Baal means Lord, Melech means king. So Moloch comes from that. And it's a Canaanite god. It's basically one of the various Canaanite gods.
But then how can we, let's say, differentiate when we're talking about Baal? How can we differentiate him from, let's say, something like Yahweh, for instance? Because Neil, you were talking about,
I personally think they're the same. Well, and here's what I mean by that. You have a pantheon in the north where El is the chief deity, and his son is Baal. There's no Yahweh in this pantheon. In the south, there's a similar pantheon. El is still the chief deity, but his son is Yahweh, and there's no Baal. So there's like competing pantheons in the north. So what I think happens is, as Israel becomes more monotheistic, and El and Yahweh get synchronized, in the north, Baal becomes the enemy. That's why you see in the Old Testament, the priests of Baal are fighting against the priest of Yahweh, and the priests of Yahweh win, because that's who they worship. So I think there's a polemic being played there, and I think that's what I think they're polemicizing the old rites. Asherah and Baal are the gods that Queen Jezebel is the queen in the north. She's a royal queen. Why is she worshiping Asherah and Baal? Because that's what they worship. That's a real thing. So what they're doing in the text, I think, is they're detaching themselves, divorcing themselves from those old ways, saying that's not the true way. This is the true way. We fought against you. The prophets of Yahweh, Elisha, defeated the 100 prophets of Baal, and then Elijah sent down fire from heaven, all that stuff. Anyways, but I'm basically getting at is it. I think Yahweh and Baal are pretty much two gods from similar pantheons competing.
Interesting. And where would you say, by the way, this lines up with, for example, the Phoenicians, where a lot of these child sacrifice type deals seem to go hand in hand with Phoenician civilization? We know that Israel was not that well known back in the day, but Phoenicia certainly was. It had colonies in Greece. It allegedly had colonies in the United States.
Everywhere.
Where it was
I don't know about that part.
Well, where it was mining for like the copper and mining for tin in Britain and stuff like that.
Britain. They were in Britain, yeah. They were everywhere. Africa, Britain, Greece, North, everywhere. They had.
But what I'm getting to though is like the Phoenicians. Would that be in your mind, Drew and Ben? Curious what you think of this as well. Like, would this be the big bad? Would this be like when we're talking about all of these satanic mystery schools that do a lot of all this bad shit?
Real quick, let me tell you where that comes from. There's a text. There's a text that's passed down, translated into Greek. We lost the original. It was a Phoenician text. We don't know what the originals. We have a translated version by a guy named Philo from the city of Byblos, a Phoenician city. And he says, according to him, he translated the text from a guy named Sancho Nietan, a Bronze Age priest from 1200 BC. That's when writing first started. So this is one of the oldest texts ever. We had it, we don't have it. But he says this is the translation. And in this text, you have El. And this is what Philo says, El, who we call Kronos, which is deified as Saturn. He sacrificed his only son, Yedud, Iedud, as an offering to heaven, Uranos, the god Uranos, the heaven god. And he said, everybody from this day forward needs to follow this rite. So you get this human sacrifice the firstborn son, rite comes out of that. Then later on, it says that Saturn circumcised himself, and that became a replacement for the human child sacrifice thing. That gets brought into the Bible as Abraham's story. It gets turned into a historical event rather than a mythology event. But the rumor that according to the Romans, the Carthaginians, who are the descendants of the Phoenicians, were still carrying out these child sacrifice rites. That's according to the Romans. According to the Carthaginians, they're like, no, we didn't do that shit. But It's he says, he says. You
Yeah.
be the judge. You know.
Yeah,
Ben,
well, the
Ben,
Romans
Ben, you be
destroyed
the
them and salted the earth and
Yes.
basically deleted them from history as
Right.
much as they possibly could. So
Well, I want Ben to be
definitely
the
some-
judge here. Ben, would you say that the way that the Carthaginians were treated, that this is just like propaganda? This is like like pointing to something that went on in the past, and really the Carthaginians are good boys and they didn't do anything bad.
I mean, Lev, you think I actually understand what's going on here? Do you think I actually have any clue as to what's going on?
Yes.
Let's get real
yes,
for a second.
Yes, you do. Well, think about it this way.
But hey,
Yeah.
I did no. I want you to ask you. But can I ask Neil a question too?
Yes,
for
you
later?
can.
Because
Yes.
he was going to say something about the puppet thing and about it being Gnostic. He
Oh,
lost his
yeah,
train of
yeah,
thought
yeah.
there.
Thanks
But
for
look-
reminding me about that.
Yeah, yeah.
So in Gnostic thought, the idea is the god of this world, the demiurge, which means creator or craftsman in Greek. He thinks he's it. He thinks he's the only god that exists. He's the highest that there is, and everyone needs to worship him, and that he's in control. But he doesn't realize he's got gods above him.
Mm-hmm.
Sophia being one of them, wisdom, the goddess. He's got strings on him, just like the demiurge has the strings on us. That's why when you said that, I was like, that's a very Gnostic way to look at the world, because it's the gods or whether you're talking about gods or rulers of this world, it all still applies, you know?
Right. That's why, I guess, is that why at the end of Aeon, when Young sums it up, he says that's why we can't say that everything God does is good, because then the word becomes meaningless.
Yep.
Because if he allows evil to happen, then we'd have to say evil is good. So it's like he's like, you were destroying the meaning of words by saying things like this. And he's like, this is you have to understand that the unification of opposites it's the key to everything.
Yeah, Young is a genius.
But then
way better than Freud, in my opinion. That's for sure.
But now we're
Okay.
getting into a bit of an impasse, though, because, I mean, let's face it, Drew, there's a lot of trad caths and orthobros out there for whom the idea of the unity of opposites equals, like, the transgender story hour. You know,
Right.
like, for them, they look at that and they see it in its most, let's say, debased form. And I'm curious where you stand on this, because we do have, like, a lot of these mystical types that the Christians look at and say, you guys are following the wrong path. It's going to only be like the path to demons and all of that. Go to church. So do you see what I mean? The difficulty here and like probing what exactly is the right way to go about life. So, yeah.
Mhm.
Well, actually, Drew, while you think on that, Ben, you were a Christian, are a Christian. Where do you stand on that question as well? When it
I
comes
would
to-
say I'm
yeah.
probably Gnostic Christian.
Nice.
One more for Neil's team. Now, Drew, back to you. Where do you stand here? Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a great, especially in my sphere, because again, I would also consider myself a Christian. But yeah, it's definitely being in the esoteric occult sphere. It's definitely something that comes up a lot, and that people will try and call me out for. But I think at the core of it is, I know we talked about this in our last podcast, but I think the real problem here, because I don't want to end up like Crowley. Crowley also saw himself as a Gnostic, and he had the whole Gnostic mass, and he was, his whole thing, do what thou wilt, was all based around this idea that there's no difference between good and evil and all this stuff. And I think where he basically died, to my understanding, kind of
As a heroin
in a sad way.
Heroin addict alone in a cheap hotel or some shit, something like that. I don't remember.
He went out sad. He went out big sad. So I think the key here is is Gnosticism tends to lead you to having a big ego, and I'm also not in the camp of the kill your ego type thing, because that's also I think not healthy whatsoever, and it doesn't help you or anyone else. But what I think the core of the problem lies is that you need to both Gnosticism and knowing things is great, but you also have to remember that you're not actually in control of everything. You're not God individually. It's in my interpretation that is that there is divinity in every human being. So it's a shared thing. So you need to operate with empathy and not be like a Crowley type where it's just do whatever you want and that makes it good. And I think the core is not salvation is not going to come from knowing stuff. I think the salvation through faith and works to some degree is the more effective way to go about it. And I think in the core of what you learn in Gnosticism and learning all these things is your thought patterns do affect your reality and your perception does affect reality. So the only thing that keeps you from having 100% faith is, doubting yourself, because it's, it's hard, you're flawed deep down. So it's hard you can never reach pure faith if you only have faith in yourself. So having faith in God, as opposed to having faith in your knowledge is, I think, the big distinction. And that's where I stand on the Gnosticism versus traditional faith. I also don't think, as far as the trad bros go, putting your faith in a pope, and I don't think even any of the trad bros think the pope is a good guy whatsoever, and yet they still, kind of say that the Council of Nicaea was 100% right in all the texts they decided to include and not include. So if you read the Gnostic text, then you're, it's Satanism. So yeah, there's some distinction there. I definitely think, I think people go too far on both sides.
Yeah, and by the way, real quick, Marcion, who's one of the biggest heretics according to the later Christians, that, like you mentioned, the ones from those councils, they think this guy's such a heretic. All these Gnostic texts. He's the guy that brought everybody the letters of Paul. And he's the son, according to tradition. I'm just going with what they say. He's the son of one of the 72 disciples mentioned in Acts. And they're putting this dude off to the side like he's nothing. I'm like, maybe the Gnostics were onto something, because that's he's the son of one of those guys. Like, why are we just putting him off to the side like that? Just saying.
Yeah, no, I think
he's the guy who brought everybody Paul's letters too.
And I think it really goes back to, I'm glad we've been talking about the Phoenicians so much. By the way, I found the video I was thinking of with the X thing. I put it in the private chat with the timestamp. So I'd love to hear your opinion on what they say there. But it goes back to the Phoenicians, aka Carthage.
Oh yeah, sure. I'd love to see that.
Because what as far as what people think of the original inhabitants of Jekyll Island, that were worshiping that owl chaos god, doing sacrifices, they referred to them as Canaanites. So again, Phoenicians, Carthage,
yeah,
that same type of line.
It's the same thing. Kanani means purple. So does Phoenician. They both mean purple. It's two different. Canaan and Phoenicia both mean the same thing. The Greeks called the Canaanites Phoenicians. The Canaanites didn't call themselves. They didn't say we're Phoenicians.
Mm-hmm.
They would say
Phuenos means like red, and they use the red ochre paint, or
yeah, exactly, purple, dark red. That's what it means. And so they would call themselves, oh, I'm from Sidonia. I'm a Sidonian from Sidon, or I'm a Tyrian from Tyre. They wouldn't really call themselves Canaanites. They might like say I'm a Canaanite, like generally, but they'd never call themselves Phoenicians. That was a Greek word that other people called them. So Phoenicians and Canaanites are the same thing.
Okay.
So what were
hold on, just one. I just want to finish that real quick. So the idea that those Native Americans were actually Canaanites that came over, and that's why the elite, continued their rituals there, and why they chose it as so important. And it is, right on the coast. So the idea, what people have this idea of our historical narrative of Columbus discovering the New World, and that was the first time anyone from Europe or the Mediterranean had been over, is now rapidly being proved false. So Jekyll Island being right on the coast, it makes sense that people from Carthage, which of course is right at the exit of the Mediterranean going into the Atlantic Ocean, they actually, this one of the first times that flat Earth was propagated was by Carthage, because they told the rest of the Mediterranean, oh, don't worry about what's past the Pillars of Hercules and the Straits of Gibraltar. There's nothing out there. The world's actually flat, and if you go through to the Atlantic Ocean, you're going to fall off, and dragons are going to eat you. Meanwhile, they were going over and trading and getting resources from the New World, and that's that kind of ties together those various things.
I would have to push back on that, because like, why don't they have Carthaginian Punic text? Like, why don't you see any Phoenician writing? Why is it, it's
the Smithsonian destroys it all.
Oh, okay, I gotcha.
I mean, there were certain things that the quote-unquote Native Americans had, as far as artifacts go, that do look oddly similar. Well, swastikas, that's one of them, but also a lot of other things related to Freemasonry, you can say. And they had a similar calendar system, I believe, to the one that was used in Israel, like ancient Israel at the time. But all of this is to say that we have these fucking Phoenicians that were doing a lot of bad things, that were in charge of this big empire, who ended up preserving a lot of these mystery school traditions. And the traditions by themselves, like, Ben, you're fascinated by Carl Jung, the things that he talks about. This is no different, in my opinion, than learning a lot of those mystery school traditions. I don't think it means that, Ben, that you are going to engage in child sacrifice once you get too deep in the Jungian mysticism. But it seems like any kind of tool. And usually the people who are going to be abusing it are going to be a bunch of tools themselves. And that is kind of like the thing that we have to fight against. But going back to Elon Musk here for a second.
Real quick.
Yes.
Lev, I want to see that video that you sent me, because I'm actually curious to see this X, what they're talking about. Maybe I'm wrong. I want to see what I just want to see what he said.
I misremembered it too. So
it's 2 hours long though.
That's
video.
The timestamp. The relevant part is only 30 seconds.
I'll be right back.
Okay.
I'm going to take a quick bathroom break as well.
All right. While Neil and Gnostic are watching this, I want to get back to the main character here, Ben. And Ben, what are your thoughts so far on what's been transpiring in this conversation? Are you still in the mindset of being a Gnostic, or is something changing?
No, I mean that's the thing that it feels right in my gut, Lev. I feel it in my bones. These are theories I had since I was a kid that I didn't know existed anywhere else. You know?
I get it, but is there also a part of you now that you get to read and watch a lot of these things coming from more of a Christian perspective, where you feel like, wait a minute, like maybe I am becoming like an Aleister Crowley figure? If I get too interested in a lot of this stuff, I may not be able to control my own urges. Like I have these urges deep inside, and once I figure out the mysteries of the universe, how will I trust myself not to abuse the one ring of power? How will I trust myself to be...
that's kind of the great thing about Gnosticism, is the deeper you go into it, the I'm like a loser that just doesn't leave his house. Like I'm kind of, it's great because my mind, I can go infinitely inward. Consciousness is so much more interesting to me than a lot of the things I can perceive. And Gnosticism reinforces a lot of those. I mean, to quote Uber Boyo, he doesn't trust any institution because any institution has to live within the demiurge. So until an institution can be pure consciousness, then he won't join it.
So it's almost like I would never be a member of a club that would have somebody like me for a member, but reversed, where it's actually a blessing that they would not have us as members, because in that way we stay kind of pure. We're not going to be able to be under the influence of these so-called clubs and organizations. Like, I'm never going to become a Freemason. I don't know about you, Drew, or Neil, or Ben, but it just seems like if you become a member of these things, all of a sudden now you kind of owe something to somebody else, and it doesn't really feel like it's like your journey.
Yeah, I've been you have to at some point in your life have the 3 temptations in the desert that Satan proposes to Christ. And either you say no to those and live, or you say yes and you die. And you create a prison of your own making. And once you know that you can say no to wealth, you can say no to some sort of some sort of power within the whatever hierarchy you sort of live in. Once you can say no to all of those challenges, then you can kind of rest easy. You won't turn into an Aleister Crowley guy. Saying no to that stuff, actually, you're finally able to know who you really are. And then you can really start doing the work and diving down in and seeing all these symbols and shapes and all these fantastical things in you. They start coming out. It's like a flower that's finally getting water. That's how I feel.
Well, what do you want to achieve from, let's say, where you are now, like 10 or 20 years from now, or even in another lifetime, let's say? Like, do you want to achieve some kind of godhood in the sense of being able to teleport? Okay, I'll give you this quick example. So when I was talking with Jason Reza-Georgiani, and I had a very fascinating live broadcast with him in New York City, but when I was talking to him in private before, he told me about a friend of his who was living among these Buddhist monks in wherever China took over. Tibet. What's wrong with me? Yeah. So he was talking about how the locals there told that guy that they regularly see these monks flying around, like Dragon Ball Z style.
That's awesome.
And Jason's idea here, like, how do they know how to fly? His idea is that they've just been reincarnating in the same place for so long that they're like part of this monk club. So when you reincarnate, you don't just like go to like some random farmer, but you like reincarnate where they can find you and they could just like continue the training. So it's like when you would do it for like several lifetimes, then you better fucking learn how to fly by that point,
Sure.
And I guess that's the question of like, can we, as not being monks, do the same shit? Can we retain the memories that were once lost and like keep going instead of just like forgetting everything?
Yeah, I don't know, man, Lev. That's a big fucking question. To answer the question you asked right before that, though, of like what I want, like out of my life in the next, would you say like 20 years or something?
Yes.
It's a Gnostic Informant. Correct me if I'm wrong, but don't the texts say, they say you can become like Christ, right? And they go, well, who was Christ? And they say Christ was a man who lived, who never burdened anyone. And that's what it meant to be Christ.
Which text are you talking about?
It's in the Nag Hammadi. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Oh, that's it's either the Gospel
maybe
of Mary.
Thomas.
Thomas. Yeah.
Okay, so, but that's, I mean, I really enjoy life a lot. I find a lot of joy in it.
The reason why I thought Mary for a second, because in Mary it says something similar to that. It says, "Do not make laws like the lawless ones do." Like laws are for lawless people.
That's interesting.
You shouldn't need laws. You should be good without the laws.
Yeah.
Think about
that's why it's important for me to not have to work hard at not having a real job. I want to spend today. I woke up just like every other day. I woke up at 6:45. I meditated. My wife left for work, and then I immediately sat down and started writing. And I wrote until we had to do this around 2. And then once this is done, I'm going to go back to. I love reading. I love writing. I love working on things that I find to be very important to me. And it took me a while to get to that position, but that's really important to me. It's really important for me to not waste my time or my day. I work really, really hard at what I like doing, but it doesn't feel like work to me because I'm having so much fun. It's gay. I'm having so much fun. It's actually really cringe. But there's this nectar, there's this spark in me, and I like feeding it. And I like enriching the lives of my friends and of my loved ones. And I don't know. That's what I like doing. That's really what I like doing.
Well,
unfortunately, life is too short.
Well,
But
watching Ben have fun with Devin and Jace, it's one of the most enjoyable experiences, and I mean this from the heart, man, like on any YouTube show that I see, because there is a genuine connection, not just like the brotherly connection that you have with Jace, but, that you have with Devin. It just seems like you guys are having fun, and this is something that a lot of people, unfortunately, are lacking today. But it does kind of bring me to the question of Elon Musk here, because if he wants to now get us to this next level of being plugged into some kind of an algorithm, that seems to be the real killer of what you are trying to develop. And in talking with Meme Analysis, who I would definitely love to bring on with all of you guys, and he is coming in on the 24th, talking to Meme Analysis, he thinks that when we're heading into now this water bearer Aquarius age, what that means for him is that there's going to be two separate streams of water, of people going within and other people going outwards. And the people who are going outwards will be the ones powered by technology, where they're not going to be able to exert their willpower on their life. It's going to be more of like them sitting down this roller coaster thing and just being like this cell in this giant superorganism. But the people who are then going to go within, they're going to be the people like Ben here, and like Drew and Gnostic, and who knows, maybe myself, where we're going to start meditating more, and we're going to find out what exactly lies within when we are able to actually focus and concentrate and not be distracted by this digital seductress that just wants to take us and put us in a goon cave forever gooning. And
and it's gonna get harder, Lev.
Yeah.
It's gonna get harder. I let my phone die. I leave it on the other side of the house. I eat snacks or like take a shit here and there, and I'll tweet something stupid. But like you have to take your phone and put it in that James and the Giant Peach popcorn bag with the candle, and you got to put it in that every day and send it out. You really got to get rid of that. I don't know how to have my phone on me and not be on it. I don't know how.
It's like an anxiety thing. Like you're just like looking, like you don't even think about it. Like some people just, some people like bite their fingernails. Other people are just on their phone, just not even thinking
you know
about
that
it.
viral video of all the old people in a line hitting the slot
Yeah,
machine button?
yeah.
I feel like I turn into that. My brain stops working. I turn it off, and I just get sucked. I get fucking sucked into it big time.
And now we have, for example, this elf girl who I wrote. And by the way, guys, if you aren't following my Substack, shame on you. It's levslens.com.
The elf girl.
Yeah, the elf girl.
I know. The new NPC Tamagotchi.
Exactly.
Ice cream. Pop, pop, pop.
Exactly.
Spicy.
Yeah, what was it? Cat paws, rare or something like that. But yeah, like that is an example of just this Jungian anima, because a lot of these young people, they are attracted to the anime aesthetic, and they see something in that they just want to, they want to protect her. They want to be the knight in shining armor for this elf girl. But there's like all of these other beta orbiter simps around her that don't they feel like this is fake. You're not going to ever be able to be with her unless you drop the whole thing and just like focus on your career and like grow, and maybe then you'll meet her. But at that point, would you even want her? Would you actually want to have somebody in your life who spends all of their time online?
Do you think it's the elf ears because it looks like a vagina? Is that the unconscious thing there? Because why is it elf ears? It's not phallic. It looks like a pussy, right? Can I say pussy on the show?
Sure, of course.
Okay.
Pussy's a beautiful word.
Pussy cat, right? It's a cat. We're talking about cats.
Sure. Exactly. Yeah. I know. I've always thought of
it looks like a cunt. No, I'm kidding.
Well, in Britain, we'd be all right. But the elf ears, I don't know, Drew, what do you make? Because it's kind of like the djinn and the demons. Like, they also have, like, the traditional pointy ears. And sometimes, like, the goblins, they have, like, the long noses. And, it's like exaggerated human features. That's kind of what it is. Which is kind of like the gray aliens, too. Because the gray aliens, Giorgiani was talking about this as well. Like, most of these gray aliens, like, half of them are, according to him, these puppets, these androids that were created by the Nordics. And Ben, you know about the Nordics, right? Like the Nordic aliens?
Yes.
Yeah, so allegedly the Nordics
Ancient Aryans?
well, allegedly...
The blonde-haired, blue-eyed, ancient creators
Well,
of advanced civilization?
Here's the thing, though, and I'm still not sure what to make of them because, according to Johnny, again, he interprets them as being the Nazis that discovered time travel and went back in time to the planet Mars and were going into like this transhumanist state. And he does not see them as coming from planet Aldebaran, and he attributes all of that as just like misinformation that these so-called
More sci-fi.
Yeah, exactly. So he is not on board with the whole Robert Seffer thing. I mean, poor Robert Seffer. Here's the thing, all right? He shouldn't have lied. He shouldn't have lied about,
being Jewish?
Yeah, about being Jewish because
why would you make that? Why would you? What's the big like? What was that about? That was weird.
yeah. Well, you can just like go and search for, Ben-Hur Sefer and search for that video where he's premiering his movie about the Holocaust, and right next to
He
him,
did a whole video.
Yeah.
Like, this is my ethnicity. I took a test. I'm Aryan. I'm Persian. All this. Like
my great grandfather was in the Nazi SS.
yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
He's an interesting figure for sure.
I would like to talk to him. I think he makes good content. I think he's sometimes
but he's never like I tried reaching out to him. Ben, do you know who we're talking about?
No.
Robert Seffer. So he's the guy who had a lot of these various theories about the ancient aliens actually being like these Nordics who came from somewhere far away, and they're the people who seeded humanity. Giorgiani's interpretation is different. Giorgiani thinks that they're actually just people, and they're like people who achieve transhumanist, like a transhumanist state in terms of their body and psychic powers, and they went back in time. They colonized Mars. And then they created the moon. So the moon actually is fake. So they created the moon in order for the Earth to be at a certain tilt, in order to allow for life to function as it does now. And then they bred with the hominids, the early hominids, and created human beings. And in a way you're saying, wait a minute, but if they created human beings, who created them if they're like these Nazis who went back in time? And Giuliani says, well, yeah, that's like a paradox, and that's the way it works. So no other explanation necessary, I guess. But anyway, that is one theory, and the other theory is that these ancient Aryan aliens came from outer space. But it's very strange, though, that you had somebody who had to lie about their own personal genetic identity in order to talk about this. It shouldn't have been this way. But what Giorgiani thinks is going on here is that the reason why Robert Seffer, that's the dude who was like talking about a lot of these theories, the reason why he lied about it is because the whole thing is like a psyop. And he intentionally lied in order to get people who were into a lot of this stuff to be demoralized about this idea if they're like these, ancient aliens and how evolution is a fraud and all of that. And I don't know. I don't know if it's working or not.
Giorgiani kind of called that out before everyone figured out about Seffer, too. Giorgiani kind of sniffed him out pretty quick. Giorgiani's a fucking genius, by the way.
He's a
say what you want about him. A lot of people hate him. I love the guy. I'm not. I always will.
Yeah,
I'm fascinated.
I think the time travel aspect is a lot more is more reasonable than them coming from like different universes or different galaxies or whatever. But it's hilarious that we're talking about. Oh yeah, well that's a ridiculous theory. But what's really happening is the time travel, and they made the moon. But actually, yeah. So that's interesting. But fun fact, in terms of predictive programming, in the last Avengers movie, of the 22 movies that ended in Endgame, which is essentially the core of the series, everything else has just been pretty much shit. But it takes place in the Marvel universe in 2023, and that's when they time travel.
Oh sure.
And also X-Men, which was also created by Stan Lee, just like Iron Man. X-Men, yes, with Professor X. Did you see Elon call out Magneto, aka George Soros, the Holocaust survivor?
Of course he would. Of course he would.
So, anyways, in that movie, they made a time travel movie for X-Men as well, Days of Future Past. That also takes place in 2023. So yeah, and obviously with the alien disclosure stuff that's happening right now, there's obviously a lot going on this year, and I assume it's only going to get crazier. But what did I want to bring this back to?
Well, the Antichrist.
Got to go in 2 minutes, by the way.
Okay. And everybody follow Gnostic Informant, by the way, before you go. I just want to say that he is an amazing, amazing creator of all these videos talking about ancient civilizations and religions.
Before I
Can
go,
we get your take on the
yeah,
X thing?
that's
Yeah.
perfect. So he sent me the clip.
Yes.
Turns out the clip he sent me was Professor James Tabor and Simca Jacobovici, two of my really good friends who have been on my channel countless times. I went to Israel with them, and I'm going back to Israel with them. Like, these are my buddies.
Nice.
And so I get now I know what you're saying. Tabor calls it a Tau because that's how Tabor is. He's a Hebrew scholar. He's looking at the shape of it. It's a T. So he's not going to call it an X. He calls it correctly. He calls it a Tau. And that's sort of how he does it. And yeah, I get what you're saying. As far as dating, though, that is particular one from Pompeii, which is in the 60s or 70s.
Okay.
So it'd be like, which is
So
very
around Revelation,
very
right?
early on for Christians that are already in Italy in the 70s. That's crazy.
Wow.
So
And that's around when Revelation was written, correct?
couple
it was around
decades,
60, 70?
couple decades before that. Yeah,
Like Nero time?
I'd say Revelation probably in like 90, something like that.
Okay.
80s maybe. Well, actually, I think it's in the reason why I say that, I think it's written during Domitian's time, because Domitian is like the second Nero, and they call him a second beast. So I think it's written in 96.
By the way, before you go, I want to make sure, Ben, you also have to go pretty soon, right?
Yes, I could stay on for a little bit longer.
There is a super chat for you, but I want to say
he isn't full of shit. Yeah, he's correct on that.
There we are. Yeah.
So what's the interpretation though? Because I actually rewatching, I was like, oh wait a second, what exactly is going on?
The Tau symbol is an early Christian cross. He's saying, oh, we're in Pompeii in Italy, and we're finding Christian symbols. This city was destroyed by a volcano in 79. So there's no way that cross can't be later than 79. So a lot of the other scholars are saying, come on, Tabor, what are you talking about? But Tabor actually thinks that's a Christian symbol in Pompeii before 79. Who knows when? Anywhere before 79.
So what is he saying the relation to X is though?
He's describing the shape of it as a Tau. That's what he's saying. So I don't know if he's not saying like the earliest Christians were using that alphabet. He's saying that letter is the same shape as
okay, gotcha.
Which makes a lot more sense. Yeah. And now I have no problem with what you said in the beginning.
Interesting.
Okay, sweet.
So we got 2 super chats over here. Glass Cake, £5. Out of the Silent Planet by C.S. Lewis gives a first-person perspective on perception. A great sister art to the two-slit experiment. So there we have the great Glass Cake.
What was that called again?
Out of the Silent Planet by C.S. Lewis. So definitely check that out. And we have,
guys.
Thank you so much, Neil. Always a great pleasure. Please follow Neil everywhere that he is.
See you, Neil. See you, buddy.
So now we have a super chat over here for Ben by Nathan Harger.
For me?
Yeah,
for me?
For you. Of course. How could it not be? You're talking like it's strange. You know, how could there be a super chat for old Bensky? Everybody loves Ben.
Oh shit, it's double now.
Hold on, it's not going to be double for long. There we go. Oh, okay, fuck it. I tried my best. To make the screens work. Now, Ben, you're going to have to... Oh, here. Now we have 3 of us on the screen. Everything's fine now. Okay, anyway, here is the super chat for the great Ben. And it's $9.99. Lemon Party, hate watch pod fan here. But I've been getting into the realm of spirituality and philosophy presented by this fine channel. Thank you for all you do. I'm a big fat.
Yeah, Nathan Harger rocks. I see his comments.
Yeah,
he's very good.
Oh, and we got $20 super chat.
Did he say I'm a fat GYRTD?
Yes,
Very
exactly.
good, Nathan. Very good.
Well, like Jesus always said, blessed are the big fat gay. Okay, anyway.
No, Jesus even would dine with the big fat gay.
Exactly.
Yeah,
that's probably fine. Who cares? Patrick Colin for $20. Thank you so much, Pat. Doing a super chat just so I can recommend the Proposition 2005 to Ben.
Yes. Wait, who commented that?
Patrick Coglin.
That's so funny because my good friend had told me, he goes last night, he goes, you have to watch this movie. So I will definitely watch it. It's from John Hillcoat. It's a Western that takes place in Australia. John Hillcoat's the guy who did The Road, and he was very good friends with Cormac McCarthy, and he was going to do the adaptation for Blood Meridian that Cormac was writing. I don't know if Cormac wrote the script before he died or what happened, but
R.I.P.
Yeah. The proposition is
Cormac.
supposed to be really good.
I'll have to definitely check it out as well. Anyway, I think we can end this pretty soon, but I just have a couple of questions here. So, question number one. When it comes to being in this possibly disembodied virtual state, we talked about how to avoid it, but we didn't necessarily talk about what this future with Elon Musk is going to look like, per se. So, Drew and Ben, if you guys can use your imagination, how do you see, like, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, you're walking around the city? Will there even be people? Are they all just going to be living in their pods by that time? Some predictions.
Yeah. Go ahead, Drew. Go ahead.
Yeah, do you mind if I start? I just
Go
had
ahead.
something I wanted to say for a
sure.
sec. So when we were talking, we've been talking about transitioning into the Age of Pisces. We talked about Aries. One thing I wanted to bring up was that Age of Aries transition from the Age of Taurus, when God basically banned human sacrifice in the Abrahamic religions, which I think is really the breaking off point between the Canaanites, Phoenicians, and the traditional Abrahamic religions that became the Roman Empire, etc. Instead of killing his son Isaac, God told him to kill the ram that was stuck in the bush. So that represents that Aries ram, and that begins the Abrahamic age, Age of Aries, moving to that. Then we have Age of Pisces, the fish symbol used in Christianity, and the first pope, Peter, of course, was a fisherman. And now we have Age of Aquarius. We have, which is the water bearer, but it's also referred to as the knowledge bearer. And that is why I think that Musk represents the same thing as like a Peter, if not, a Christ, but a first pope kind of thing. I think he does represent the knowledge bearer, except what he's, the source of his information isn't, divine inspiration. It's an AI, which is ultimately what XAI is going to be, is going to be the knowledge bearer. And yeah, I think that kind of goes into your question as well.
Young would probably say the same thing, but very disappointedly so. He would say what you said, but then he'd be sighing as he's saying, yeah, and I guess Elon is Christ for the Age of Aquarius, I suppose. It's a guy who likes memes and Dogecoin and has nothing to say at all.
Well, maybe that's where the real hellscape comes in, that you're not really having somebody who is like a William Shakespeare or somebody who is able to have a cultural contribution to humanity where we're going to be telling, the stories. It's more going to be like these recycled stories like the Marvel memes like we were talking about, where every iteration of them just seems to be a lot less powerful, a lot less nuanced, whatever you want to call it. It's like basic bitch stuff.
Yeah, do you know
multiverse of madness? That's all they have left is combining all their different corporate stories, and they're just throwing it all into one, like fucking Spider-Man. Like, oh, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna take the last 20 years of all the different Spider-Mans that we made and throw it into one.
Do you know that guy Oswald Spengler?
Mm-hmm.
He wrote The Decline of the West.
Yes.
He put civilization, and he looked at it like seasons, where it's spring, summer, fall, and winter. And he had marks in these like probably 300 to 400 year periods of like, this was the spring of civilization, this was the summer. And he said that the sign that we would be entering the winter of civilization, if I remember correctly, is he said art will begin to mimic itself. That was a big telltale sign. It's literally exactly what Drew was talking about, where civilization is completely decaying and it's going to die before it's hopefully someday reborn again, if the Earth's not too hot or something.
Well, that's what I think is interesting too, and again, it goes to Lev's earlier question as far as Are we being led to something devious, or was it always going to happen? And to some degree, I think these advancements, whether or not Elon gave millions of dollars and founded OpenAI before, it turned into Chat GPT, and now he has a reason to not only form XAI, but he also has a reason to fix the problem he created. He also has Neuralink to give humanity a reason or a ability to compete with it. To some degree, it was probably always going to happen.
We've been setting this up. Even we've been doing what AI's been doing. We've been making movies about the making of movies. We've been making TV shows about the making of TV shows. What the fuck? We've been doing this before AI even did it.
We made TV shows. We made TV shows about people reading into predictive programming in comic books to predict the future, which Utopia is like the biggest mindfuck of all time. Have you seen that one, Ben? You seen Utopia TV series?
I'm looking it up.
It's so it was originally a British TV show in 2013. And then it became a US, I believe, Netflix, or no, I think it was Amazon exclusive in 2020. It came out in fall of 2020. And the concept is there's a bioweapon pandemic that is a setup to get everybody to take this vaccine that actually sterilizes everyone and reaches the goal
gotta be careful.
500 million. I'm just describing Utopia, dystopia 2020, or
Hey,
Utopia.
Man, every time I see some shit like this, I just go, cool, man, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say.
The main characters literally use a comic book series, and based off of the clues that are in the comic book series, they use it to accurately predict what's going on. And that's like, yeah. Anyways, they canceled the second season. Lo and behold. So there's no more second season going on in the US version.
That's the what's that? It's not a mimetic fallacy. What is it? It's the where when people are trying to explain like how eyesight works, they say, "Oh, well, there's a little man inside your head watching." What is it? Fuck, what is it? I'm trying to remember what it is. Do you know what I'm talking about? About the little guy inside your head? It's a fallacy. I forget what it is.
Well, there is a little man inside all of your heads that's making you reach for the subscribe button and click it right now.
I think it was
and
like
the bell.
And the bell, exactly.
And the super chat button.
Yes,
it's a fallacy where someone's trying to describe how eyesight works, and they say there's a little man inside your head that can see what you're seeing, and they go, "Well, who's inside the little man's head?" And so then the idea would go infinitely inward, where there's a little man inside his head.
It's the homunculus argument.
Oh, the homunculus argument. Okay, thank you. I knew there was a homunculus involved, but I didn't know what the
well,
idea
it's a similar question.
Where when someone uses the thing itself to explain the thing itself.
Yeah, I see what you mean. It's like the puppeteering we were talking about earlier.
Yes.
You know, like where exactly is the unmoved mover? Where exactly does that start?
Because that's what we're doing with that Utopia show. We're watching characters tell a story by them seeing characters tell a story in a thing of characters seeing people in a book telling it. And it just goes infinitely inward.
Exactly.
If I understand the plot correctly.
But the one last question that I've had on my mind, which I do want to address, is going back to Christianity and going back to let's say the Hebrew religion, the Old Testament as well. When we have this understanding of these various epochs, where we're only talking about a few, we're talking about Aries going into the fish, going into the water bearer. That's still, like, in terms of galactic time, that's so little. That's such a small amount of time. And so the question is, I am not saying that the kind of faith that people have in what they, I think, correctly perceive and what you correctly perceive to be good works and what exactly you focus on, as opposed to being like some Aleister Crowley drug addict fuckhead. Like, that to me is an objective good. I can't like write a thesis and tell you like why that's good, but I think it's something that goes beyond being able to write, which again, I understand the attractiveness that Christianity has to people who do recognize that quality within their own lives. But then if we take a step back and ask, well, if Christianity is this one very particular epoch, of time having to do with this constellation. All right, what about everything else? What about Scorpio? What about I don't remember all of them, Leo or whatever, like
Well,
what
yeah,
happens then?
Taurus, the previous one to Aries that's when they were doing the ball. That's where they were doing the ball sacrifice, the bull god, child sacrifice. So it's kind of just like a, on some degree, a symbol of the dominant philosophy and culture of the epoch. But yeah, no, I mean, going back to just a fun reference, the Age of Leo, that is basically the time frame that Plato gives for Atlantis, and it's also that is in that time frame, which is 11,600 years ago or so. In that time frame, the pyramids would have been aligned with Orion's belt, and
The
the
Sphinx
Sphinx would be facing the constellation Leo
during
on
the
I
equinox.
believe, the equinox. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
exactly. And that would have been like 15,000 years ago or something crazy like that, right? So
yeah.
that's the other interesting thing here, but again, it brings me back to this question of if we are imagining our life as being like this spinning, the spinning cycle, and then we have certain things that either push us more inwards, more towards the earth, more towards being more, I guess, animalistic for lack of a better word, and then other things that can push us out. Two things here could possibly happen. Number one is that this particular life that we are in is, I mean, I hate using the word simulation theory, because I don't really people imagine that having to do with like some scientist sitting down in a lab somewhere, with like bad teeth and just like programming all of our existence. That's not what I mean. What I mean is, one way of looking at this world is that everything, including all those galaxies and various things that we see through the telescope, it's all kind of there to trick us in a way, to make us perceive that there is something more out there, even though the focus is actually just like on the earth, and everything around it is more of like the supporting character to the story that's going on here. That's one way of looking at it. But then the other way of looking at it is that the earth is in this specific place in the galaxy where it's undergoing these specific things based on the level of advancement of the beings that reincarnated on this planet. But then there's like other planets and other galaxies everywhere, and people have different experiences on those as well. And
That's
I am torn.
the core of Scientology as well. That's essentially their belief that that humanity was delivered here by Xenu with a big X, and
Exactly.
the problem was overpopulation. So he took half of the population to Earth and blew them up in volcanoes, and then they became Thetans, not to be confused with Thanos, the guy who was also concerned with depopulation that came and visited Earth at the end of the Marvel movies. But yeah, I think ultimately the concept you're laying out there, as far as should a human think about Earth as the core of the experience, or or are we just a blip and it's insignificant? What's the best
Well,
perspective to
I
have?
wouldn't use the word insignificant. I would use the word that we would be then on a very particular level, having to do with our like literal position in the galaxy, where we're not in the center, we're not further away, so we would be of a certain vibration that would be correct for where we are. Not saying it's a blip, but just saying like we can define our level, just like, for example, if you're born in like a third world country, you can define your level of advancement based on, the environment around you, whether like the cars are breaking down or not, things like that. So that's more of what I mean, as opposed to
Okay.
like being born like in the first world somewhere, like in the Hamptons or wherever, like being born somewhere where it's like a paradise, and that would be the equivalent of being reincarnated in a better part of the galaxy where there's like less wars that are going on, there's less hunger, people are smarter, whatever. So that's more of what I mean.
I think just I guess my comment would be irrelevant to that, maybe, or maybe tangentially important. But I think just to go back to the alien question, which is obviously very tied into Musk, is this, I see, as far as we were talking about earlier, like, oh, time travel versus they come from a different place, whatever. As far as UFOs and aliens in particular, one, there's no reason to believe UFOs or aliens come from anywhere but Earth. There's no reason to believe that. That's just the only reason we kind of have that idea that there's a UFO that must be from outer space. That's just all from the sci-fi programming, which basically happened at the exact same time, thanks to Werner von Braun working with Walt Disney, and then Star Wars and George Lucas, kingpin of which that whole Star Wars series is based off of Crowley's Moonchild, the idea that there's light magicians and dark magicians fighting over the chosen one. But that I think that concept is at the core of the difference between what they want us or what's being programmed, they want the population to think is like, there's all these other aliens and humanity's insignificant and you're insignificant. And there is no God, aliens created you. Versus, kind of more, okay, they're just an advanced civilization. We've had advanced civilizations previously on Earth, and maybe these people that are visiting us now are either, people that joined their civilization or got their technology, or, some descendants of these ancient groups. And then the other thing is the aliens, I think also it's the grays that they're going to bring out, and they've, shown us before or had reports of, are most likely, just biological experiments, and that's and genetic modifications or whatever, which that predictive programming is in both Deus Ex, the video game, and Watchmen. I'm going to take another bathroom break.
Sure.
I'll hand it over to Ben.
All right. And Ben, we're going to be concluding soon, but in terms of these various ways of explaining our reality, I mean, I know that none of us have the answers really, but if you were to lean on whether, let's say, Drew is right about, so his view is more of having the planet Earth be the kind of like be-all, end-all place where everything is kind of decided here, and this is the entire reason for existence, as opposed to there being like other planets and galaxies somewhere where people are having different experiences. Which one would you align yourself more at the moment?
I guess I would say if there are other planets where there are other people and civilizations, I would say they're just as meaningless as this one. That's what I would say. That's what I would say. There's a whole other
That's
other
such
place.
a bummer. That's so sad.
There's a whole other place that's actually real, and it's not this place.
Well, in that place, like they're also watching Marvel movies and gooning and things like that. Like,
yep, that's right. Yeah, they're all just watching porn, and they're watching the girl with the elf ears eat the spicy jalapenos on TikTok.
Well, the girl with the elf ears and we were talking about the Greys before, there is a similarity to them as well, because
that's interesting. Yeah, it's true.
With the big bulbous heads and the anime eyes. In fact, there's this picture that I posted. Once again, if you guys are not on the Lev's Lens Substack, I don't know what you're doing with your lives. This is the greatest Substack of all. Oh my God. We just got $100, Ben.
Who did?
We just got I did, but anyway, it's Mama Lover 67, $100. Woo!
Wow, nice.
And here's what he says: glasses are gay. Love you, Benifer, and thank you for the live.
Thank you for the live what?
Nothing. Just thank you for the live. That's it. That's all Mama Lover has to say. And we were just talking about a DPS earlier. Drew, the stream just got $100 super chat.
Whoa, damn. Who's Daddy Warbucks jumping in the chat here?
It's not.
CIA
well, it ain't Daddy.
Us?
It ain't Daddy. It's Mama Lover 67.
They definitely are really drunk and fucked up on all sorts of different prescriptions.
Good.
And they meant to send either $1 or 10, and they sent 100. That's literally exactly what happened.
Let's go.
See,
this is cashed out.
This is fate.
They think you're me and I'm you. They just see a green shirt and glasses. They have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, they probably meant to send that to my PayPal. So just go ahead and toss that my way.
This is the gray alien elf spectral waifus working. Like, this was the other point that I was getting at. Regardless of whether it's only about the planet Earth or it's about like everything in the universe, what is still in effect is this idea of different dimensions, where you would have these elves and fairies and these bulbous-headed gray aliens as being the spectral force which interacts with us. And the reason why it looks like the way it looks like, for example, like Ben, have you ever done DMT?
No, I never have.
All
I've
right,
done psychedelics, but I've
Welcome
never
to the
done
Joe
DMT.
Rogan podcast.
So you've done psychedelics, though. So with the
Yes.
psychedelics, you would notice like certain beings, let's say, they would look like things that you already kind of know. Do you know what I mean? Like they would, for example, take the form, like for ayahuasca trips, people would see like the forms of jaguars and like mosquitoes, you know, it wouldn't be like things you're totally unfamiliar with. And the reason why I think it's important is that I consider this to be like this daimonic force that is a part of us. It's a part of the collective unconscious that Jung was talking about. And I write about in the Substack how the fairies and the elves and like all of these things that we're very much attracted to, things we think about, they look like us but slightly different because in a way they are mirroring our desires. And the only desires that we could possibly have are things that we already kind of know. Like we know what a human looks like, and from there on we can like expand it into like a human with like these pointy looking ears or like these big anime like eyes, and it's still like something that's mirroring a human being.
Shit! The oh my god, the hot booby elf ladies on TikTok, those are the Archons. The machine elves are the builders of the demiurge.
Exactly.
This makes perfect. It's so satanic. That's why people want to fuck elves.
Gnostic Informant, where are you, bro? This is all you right here.
Oh, he'd be flipping out right now.
Yeah. Well,
this
you
is
know,
groundbreaking.
I will send this to him. And you know what, fellas? I think it's about high time we have a live stream in New York City. I've got the venue. We're going to go to New York City. Ben, when the time is right, Drew, you're in New York City, so it's going to be easy for you. And Neil's coming, and we're going to have a live Break the Rules just like with your Johnny, and it's going to be great. And I'm very excited about the possibility when it works out for you guys. That's going to be the next step.
I'm hoping to publish a book sometime early next year, and then I'll have to go to New York and go on people's shows to promote it and stuff, in which case I'd be happy to do yours.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Ben. We will do it. And by the way, guys, if you want to be like a VIP member to get access to all of these events for free, patreon.com/breaktherules. I cannot stress this shit enough, okay? Become a patron right here, right now. Well, $20 patron. If you become a $20 patron, you are going to get access as a VIP to these live BTR events where you're going to be able to get there earlier and hobnob, you know, with all these wonderful people like Drew and Ben. And you're going to be part of the inner circle. And I'm going to invite you to all kinds of great events that are happening in New York City because now I am plugged in. I am plugged in to the other kind of matrix, to the matrix of the people who are trying to figure out what all this is about and not get stuck into this goon cave of perpetual coming and the draining of the virile energy away from you while you're watching these cybernetic elf girls, you know, jiggle and wiggle and whatever. You know what I'm trying to say here, guys. It's the next step. We are what was going on in ancient Greece with the symposium when like things were going chaotically, when they were losing in the Peloponnesian War, you know, and everything was going to shit. That's when the real philosophy started coming out, guys. It wasn't when things were good. It was when things are crap. So we got to use this right now to advance our knowledge of what's going on around us. We got to use the tools at our disposal, but at the same time making sure that we do not give ourselves to the Elon Musk X Antichrist as well. That's all I got to say. Final plugs. Let's start with Ben. Lemon Party.
Yeah, Black Power, donate to BLM. Donate to the DNC. Those are all my plugs right there. Donate to, just raising a fist.
Buy large mansions, BLM.
Yeah. We don't need the leash that time around. I really like that bit, by the way. Guys, watch the latest Lemon Party episode where, Ben, you talk about how, you know, you're getting somewhere and then somebody takes the leash and like that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, when I go too far and Jason Devon are like, chill out. Yeah. Forgot about that.
That's a lot of fun. No, seriously.
These two coming out this next week are fucking, they're really bad.
In a good way.
They're way too far. I don't have the heart to listen back to them yet before I edit them, but I probably won't edit anything out. But yeah, they the one that's coming out on Patreon burns a lot of whatever. Who cares? Whatever. The room gets hot in the summer, and I can't have a filter. So it's like 90 degrees in my house.
Yeah. No, Ben, you are like pure unfiltered cigarettes, like the ones they used to get like in the World War II. You know, like the I love that guy Steve 1989. He does all those videos of
I've seen him. Yeah,
you know what I'm talking about, like the MREs. But anyway, Drew, what do you got to plug, brother?
Yeah, so just follow me on Twitter at Drutang Reborn, DRU Tang Reborn. Yeah, if you want to get a better idea of what I was talking about as far as Elon Musk and perhaps find some more evidence that perhaps will make you think I'm less of a schizophrenic than you do right now, then go ahead and check it out. It's it took me like 14 hours to write it. It's pretty long, but I think it paints a pretty important picture given our current age. So yeah, thanks for having me on, Lev. It was awesome.
Thank you, Lev.
Thank you,
buddy.
guys. Highly recommended. Oh, and we got 2 super chats. I just want to say those before we go. So Erico's £9.99. Favorite numbers and why?
28, 33, 22 and 8 are also out there. I'd give those my the top 4. And go ahead.
Yeah. No. Keep going.
Oh, so in numerology, 28 refers to it's basically like the ultimate number of money, and it's based off of the moon cycle is 28 days, and the concept of money itself is also it's moony, same core of the word as month, which obviously is about the moon, and then also. Oh, I guess the other one, 33, is pretty obvious. The
Club 33.
33 vertebrae of the spine, so it's pretty important overall.
Absolutely, it is. Ben, favorite numbers. Give us a favorite color too. While you're
favorite color. I really like yellow, and
like a lemon.
Yeah,
right?
like a lemon. Yeah. Well, yellow represents it represents like
yellow
life.
power.
Like
what are you
light.
talking about? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. And favorite numbers are probably when David Lynch used to pick numbers every day, and I watched every morning. The ones that would make me have a really good day were number 9 and numbers. I really liked 2 and 3 and 1. And the number that would give me a bad day would be 8. So I would say I really like number 9. I really like number 7. I'm going to go with 9 though. I really like 9. 9's a good number.
Yeah.
The Chinese love 9.
The Chinese love 9.
Yeah, there
18,
we go. Yellow power.
That's
That's what we're talking about.
In Rocky 2, it's the one time he mentions numerology is he sees the address of his new place and he goes, "Oh, it almost equals 9. That's a good omen." So
he says it almost equals 9.
Yeah, and his previous place did. His previous address did, but yeah, there's like I run a group that focuses on numerology and stuff, and I asked one of the guys like, "How did you like first get interested in numerology?" He said, "I was a real estate agent in Canada." And at one point, a house with the address 18 went up for sale, and there was a huge bidding war with a bunch of Chinese people, and they bid it up like 500,000 over asking price. So, yeah, they like 9.
Yeah, they treat that stuff very seriously, the Chinese, with like the I Ching and things like that. Okay, so finally, the final 2 super chats. We had one more coming in. So let's see, I got to scroll up here because for some reason Stream Labels is showing the actual chats. Here we go. Moas Turtleneck, $5. Lemon character, holding his hand in front of his mouth.
Did you
grinning.
really call him Moist?
Moist? Yes, it's not Moist. Am I wrong? How do you say
It's literally the word moist.
Moist. Okay, it's moist. Fine. Miller Rain, $5. Lemon character moving his head from left to right with his mouth wide open and
Hell
red
yeah.
hearts in his eye. What is this? Is this like, are they trying to create like an emoji and it's just like the text of the emoji? I don't know what's going on anymore, fellas. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate Moist Mouse.
What's so funny about that? It's his name. Come on, Lev.
Guys, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. Follow me on Twitter at Lev Po. And once again, subscribe to my fucking Substack, all right? At levslens.com. It's very easy to remember. Here is the link. I'm posting it. And also the Patreon, patreon.com/breaktherules. Very important, as you guys know. And yeah, follow the Discord. You could find, I'm too lazy to type it in. You could find it in the description, all right? We have a Discord. All right, thank you guys so much. Mwah! Good night, everybody.